So anyway, one of the classrooms, Cheryl Hayward, who was a very attractive teacher, by the way. Cheryl Hayward put on the lottery. So we saw like a 15, 20-minute rendition of the lottery. And I got to tell you, think about this for a moment. You're 12, you're 11, let's see, how old was I? I was 11 years old. I was 11 years old in the 6th grade. And here this movie is shown to myself and the other kids about a town in New England, at least I thought it was New England, that was how I saw it, where people are chosen to essentially be stoned to death. So they're showing this to an 11-year-old kid. I'm like, now that I look back on it, why? Why was that? Just an open question. Were they showing that to traumatize us? Frankly, I thought it was, being Scorpio rising, I thought it was really interesting. Like, wow, check this out. This is kind of cool. It's creepy, but it's kind of cool, So, yeah, anyway, Shirley Jackson. I actually worked with Shirley Jackson's niece for a while in San Francisco. There's my other Shirley Jackson story. Let's read our biography here. American Gothic novelist known as the Virginia Werewolf of seance fiction, a prolific and disciplined writer whose typewriter kept going from day into night. Along with her haunting fiction, she wrote humorous domestic works as well as contributing to articles to Woman's Home Companion and the Saturday Evening Post in the 1950s. Jackson enjoyed a tremendous following of horror fans, delighted with her chilling thrillers. In 1961, she was awarded the Edgar Allan Poe Award for the story Louisa, Please. Jackson studied at the University of Rochester from 1934 to 1936. She went to Syracuse University and earned her BA in 1940 at her home in North Bennington, Vermont. So there we go. There's the New England thing. She hammered out her works. She first published with her book, The Road Through the Wall, in 1948. She gained many fans with her classic short story about small-town evil in The Lottery in 1948. She followed with her most noted novel, The Haunting of Hill House, published in 1959 and made into a feature film in 1963. She also wrote her autobiography, Just an Ordinary Day. Jackson was married to literary critic Stanley Edgar Hyman. Her husband, a compulsive skirt chaser. Maybe that's what happens when your last name is Hyman. Kept their marriage tempestuous and troublesome. The couple had 4 children and remained married until Jackson's death in 1965. Jackson was an alcoholic who took tranquilizers. And Dexedrine. There you go. That's why she could stay up late and type. Powered by Dexedrine. She suffered from agoraphobia and occasional bouts of severe depression. She died of a heart attack on 8/8/1965 at the age of 48 in North Bennington, Vermont. All right, so let's look at her chart. Can we find the roots of a great horror writer in the chart of one Shirley Jackson? Let's do this. Let's put this in the chat room. I'll put this link up in the chat room. We can discuss a little astrology here. Let's do this. Here we go. And into the chat room it goes. Oh, come on now. Copy me. What happened? Copy. Here we go. All right. So here's, I'm just putting, why won't you paste for me? That's odd. It's not gonna, let's see. Copy. Here we go. And it's the same browser. Paste. All right, I just put this up in the chat room. And let's see. Here we go. So when we look at Shirley Jackson's chart, first of all, is anybody on hold? Let me just check my queue here. Nope, wide open. All right. When we look at Shirley Jackson's chart, so if we were to look at a chart class is open right now. If we were to look at a chart, what houses would we look at in terms of A, writing, B, publishing, C, horror, D, supernatural? Well, we'd probably look at 4 houses. It would be the 12th house, it would be the 8th house, it would be the 3rd house, and it would be the 9th house. Okay, so when we look at Shirley Jackson's chart, which I've just put up in the chat room, clearly there's a very strong 8th house emphasis. 8th house being the house of Scorpio, life, death, sex, transformation, the psyche, the unconscious, drugs, keep that in mind, alcohol, more drugs than alcohol, but still drugs. Alcohol we'd associate with like the 12th house. The 12th house would be, alcohol, any sort of liquid drug, like perhaps heroin, maybe LSD, since LSD is a liquid. That would be a 12th house substance. 8th house would be things like dexedrine, seconal, downers, uppers. That would be 8th house. Mushrooms, I think, could be an 8th house drug too, by the way, psilocybin. Anyway, we look at Shirley Jackson's chart. What does she have in the 8th house? Moon, Neptune, Saturn, all in the 8th house. Moon in the 8th house is opposed Uranus down there in the 2nd, and it's both of those planets are squaring Venus in the 11th. So we look at her relationship with Buster Hyman, whatever his name is, her skirt-chasing husband. Venus is in Scorpio in the 11th. So Venus in Scorpio is all about transforming the life and the self through relationship in a very intense way, in a very confrontational kind of way, with unconscious material floating around. Relationship brings it out, brings it up, deal with it. People that have Venus in Scorpio often have very, very intense, tempestuous, phoenix-like relationships. The relationships burn. They come out of the relationship with a new layer of skin and and wisdom, theoretically. That's how Venus in Scorpio works. People that have Venus in Scorpio are they're very into intense encounters with sexuality as well as emotional material. Now, so here she has Venus in Scorpio, and what is it doing? It's squaring her moon in the 8th house, squaring Uranus down in the 2nd. There's a restlessness. By the way, those are all fixed signs. When you get a T-square in fixed signs, it's very challenging, extremely, extremely challenging. It's hard to change the pattern. Once you change a pattern, you can change a pattern for good. I mean, you can make major life shifts with a fixed T-square. But if you get stuck in the fixed T-square and you can't get out of it, it can be very troublesome. And it feels like Shirley Jackson was stuck in a T-square and she could not get out of it. Now, one could theoretically make the assumption here, or the leap, that with all those planets, right, in the 8th house squaring Venus in Scorpio in the 11th, there would be, especially with the moon, we're talking the moon here, there could be some form of supernatural intercession, meaning that we could be dealing with possession states. That through her relationship with drugs and alcohol and spending time with supernatural material, that she would open herself up and be a host for supernatural energy or supernatural entities to bind to her, right? Theoretically, this could happen with this kind of alignment. Now, obviously, we know about her history, so we're kind of backfilling with some priori knowledge here, but still, nonetheless, I mean, we could look at it and say this is an interesting potential or possibility. Moon opposed Uranus, incredibly restless. So here we have a person that needs relationship in order to transcend, transform, grow, and understand herself, but at the same time, her feeling nature, which is the moon, is opposed Uranus, so there's an intense restlessness. And with the moon in the 8th house in Leo, it would be a challenging series of circumstances to get to and understand the material. Anything that's 8th house related or 1st or 12th house related, it's hard. It's hard to get to it. It's hard to figure it out. Now, conversely, the moon also plays a huge role in her success, as well as potentially her troubling set of circumstances and perhaps her early demise. We see the moon in a grand trine also with Sun and Jupiter. So she's got an amazing amount of energy, amazing amount of endurance. We can see that with that grand trine. It's a fire trine, right? And her Sun is in Sagittarius, right on the ascendant. So she's, she's got life force. This is a vital, vital woman. A lot of energy. So while she's tapping into the moon, and the moon is a big planet for her, by the way, huge. While she's tapping into the moon for inspiration, for emotional connectivity, the moon is also, in some way, a double-edged sword in her chart in leading to personal problems, especially with relationships. It's a fascinating chart. The other thing that she has is she has a yod, a finger of God. And Mercury and Mars are pointing exactly towards Pluto in their opposite sign. Well, in Mars's case, yes. Actually, Mercury too. She has Mercury in Capricorn. And in their opposite sign of Pluto in Cancer in the 7th house. So again, here we have Pluto in the 7th house, the nature to be transformed by relationship. She needed to have a relationship in her life where she could really go into the depths of the psyche of that relationship. So Shirley Jackson, rolled the dice big time in her very brief incarnation. And she, hey, look, very few people on Astro Dienst and their related site, Astro Databank, very few people have their picture on there. So Shirley Jackson probably did something right on some level. So that's our brief astrology lesson for the day. Sun in the 1st house, Mercury in the 1st house, Mars in the 1st house, true node in the 1st house. Last night I was cruising around and I was looking at my chart and I was playing with my chart and I was looking at Saturn. I hadn't necessarily made this connection before with my own chart. It's a funny thing. Charts are like these living mandalas that kind of grow with you over the course of a lifetime. So, and you think you know everything about your chart, and all of a sudden you look up and you see an aspect, and maybe it's an aspect that you never really paid attention to because now all of a sudden you need to pay attention to that aspect, or that aspect is important in your life. So I was looking at my chart last night, and I realized that Saturn trines my midheaven and trines my true node. And it trines my midheaven almost exactly. It's like off by 1 degree. And then it trines my true node. And I started to look at the meaning of Saturn trining the true node. And it was really funny. It said that I would lean towards conservative politics. And that I would be well respected over a long period of time by conservative people. It was very funny. Thinking to myself, well, is that true? It's like, is that really true? Maybe. I don't know. I might be more conservative in some ways than people realize, but in other ways, I'm kind of more radical. I don't know. It's an interesting discussion that I stumbled upon last night while looking at my own chart. So the other day, this is now Mercury's gone direct. In fact, it was yesterday. I was having a chat, online chat with one of the listeners of the show and the readers of the blog, and she lives over in London. We were chatting, and we were talking about London, and we were, she said, well, have you ever thought about moving to London or England? But I've spent some time in London,